This is the cheapest track saw on Amazon, but I found a problem with this saw and I'll show you the cheap solution to fix it. This is Festool's brand new TS60 track saw. In this video, I'm going to test these two extremes to find out if they're worth it or a waste of money. And more importantly, I will show you whether or not there's a $700 value difference between them. And as a bonus, I'll also show you why you always want to keep two hands on your track saw at all times. Now to test these saws, I do something crazy. I just do one test. I don't use plywood. I use the thickest, hardest wood I can find, which in my case is a 2-inch thick piece of hard maple. And my reasoning is if a track saw can cut through this in one plunge, anything else under that is going to be fine. Also, my shop flooded and all of my plywood got wet and got thrown away, so I can't do those tests right now. I'm sorry. It's a little sketchy doing the plunge at first. I recommend starting the saw and then going in. It's kind of hard to convey, but you can really see me struggling. And in a worldwide premiere, you can see for the first time my muscles starting to show. I had to push this saw pretty hard to get it to go at this speed. I was expecting the saw to give up at any moment because the motor was vibrating pretty hard. It was getting really, really hot. I'm actually surprised that it made the full cut. Oh, there's a drop of sweat. You can see in this shot just how hard it takes for me to push through this 2 inches of maple. 1 minute and 37 seconds with some drops of sweat because it's 101 in my garage and it's July in San Antonio. You're welcome. This is the Festool TS60, and to my surprise, it plunges just fine. And I really don't have to push this. I'm barely pushing. Look at my muscle. It's still hiding. I mean, if you could even see it, but muscles aren't even there. I'm literally just guiding the saw through the butter that is 2 inches of hard maple. No muscles needed, thankfully. "30 seconds. Now the crazy thing is when you put these two clips side by side and you run them in real time, you can see just how fast an extra $700 gets you. This was kind of crazy to do like in person, but watching this back on the screen, I didn't realize how slow the wind was and how fast the Festool was. This is real time. I'm not speeding anything up. And I didn't really push it. And with the wind, I am pushing, there's my muscle, me making a second showing it. I'm pushing really, really hard. Now, I'm not gonna make you watch the rest of the win, but it was 1 minute and 37 seconds to finish it. Now here's the cut quality on the win. Now keep in mind, I was using the stock blade, which is 24 teeth, and it's made for ripping, but I got burning and I got saw marks. Honestly, for $100 out of a cardboard box, 2-inch hard maple, I was expecting way worse. So I'm kind of surprised that it's even this good, but it's still not great. Now this is what the Festool looked like, and keep in mind, I was using the 42 tooth blade that it came with, which is not what you want for ripping. On the offcut, there's burning, but on the main piece, surprisingly, pretty good considering it's the wrong blade. Now imagine what it would be if I did have a 24 tooth blade. Now I had a crazy idea. I had a brand new thin kerf 24 tooth blade from CMT that I thought I would try since it is slightly thinner than the stock 2.2 millimeter blade that comes with the Win. So swapping that out, I decided to see if that would change anything. And the cinematographer decided it would be fun to change up the angle, but it totally ruins the vibe of the video because now we can't compare these two. So he would be fired, except he's the namesake and actor and the person voicing over right now. So that's not gonna happen. What's that? You want me to redo the shot just so you can see a straight on comparison against the Festool and the old blade? Fine. Now the Festool with the wrong tooth count is still beating out this Win, but I think that's because of the motor. but I am impressed with this thin curved blade. And just in case you forgot what the other full curved blade looked like, this would be the progress of the old blade. "30 seconds. And this thin curved blade finished in 50 seconds. Oh, you'd like to see just the full curve versus the thin curve? Well, at 450% speed, this is the difference between a thin curved blade. Same tooth count. I was not expecting this, honestly. I mean, this is a great case for having a thin curved blade. Here's the cut quality for the thin curve 24 tooth blade from CMT. Pretty flawless. No burning, no tooth marks, no blade marks. I mean, if this were going to be your final piece, you could probably sand it with 220 and then go to finish. A $20 blade on a $100 track saw. I mean, the motor was struggling. There's no denying that. However, impressive considering the price. Now, I'm sure there's some Win apologists out there who are going to say, well, Drew, you're leaving out the brand new cordless variant of this Win track saw. And to them, I'd say, you really expect me to go buy that track saw just to do a like 10-second clip of using that? Here it is. I was actually surprised with this version. Now, I do have some questions on this, and I'll talk about my thoughts about this track saw offering later in the video, but for a cordless track saw, this actually had a thin curved blade, I think 40 tooth, no cord, and wait for it, a little bit of muscle, but 50 seconds. Well done, Win. And here was the cut quality. There's user error right there, so we should fire the cinematographer again for that. That was his fault, but all things considered, no burning and no egregious tooth marks, given the fact that I'm even using the wrong tooth count, but this is just the blade that came with it. I was wrong about this one. I actually like that one. Now, some of you are out there and you have a fever and more cheap track saws is the cure. Okay, here you go. This is the Master Force. I think $200-ish from Menards. I don't like it because it doesn't have a port that accepts my vacuum hose. The track slid because I had to push it so hard, and I didn't realize it because I can't see the saw blade because I'm on the backside, and I wondered why it got really easy to push. This one sucks. I don't recommend this saw, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Oh, Drew, you should buy the Grizzly, you say. Fine. So yes, I bought the Grizzly, which is kind of laughable that it says Pro, and here's the thing, it couldn't even do the full depth. Like, partly the motor was scared to even try, but its cut capacity is lying. I had the saw all the way down and it would not cut the full depth. I think it was because the stickers on this cheap track saw were about to fall off. But what was even worse is, again, like the Menards track saw, the track started to slip. And again, I got offline and didn't make a full cut. So for these two track saws, I'm not even going to time them or count them. And honestly, how they felt at the very beginning, I can tell it's not worth wasting more maple and more of your time. So if you're considering these two cheap options, please don't. I know you were just asking yourself, I wonder how the corded Nikita does in this situation. And so I did that with two tests. The video on the left has the thin curved 24 tooth, and the video on the right has an old, dirty, probably dull 36 tooth. Pretty amazing what a clean blade with the right tooth count will do. 38 seconds. 1 minute and 1 second with a dirty 36 tooth blade. That's thin curve. Look at how used this blade is. And here's the cut quality. As you can see, lots of burning, lots of blade marks, not the best. Now, a lot of this is probably due to the condition of the blade, as I really don't see a whole lot of tooth marks. However, the 24 tooth was just amazing. Here's what the finish looked like with that 24 tooth blade. Some slight blade marks, but again, that can be sanded out. Impressed. No burning. But the biggest thing I'm looking at is that there's no burning and there's no egregious tooth or blade marks. Now, I know a ton of people are going to ask me, what about the Craig? Sure, okay, I'll do it with the Craig. I will say this test pushed the Craig to its limits. The motor felt like the motors on the cheaper Wins. It's also using a full kerf blade with a high tooth count. And the reason why I didn't do this test with the thin kerf CMT blades is because this has a riving knife that is full kerf, and I would have to disassemble the saw and disassemble that riving knife in order to do the test. And you got to draw the line somewhere, people, right? 1 minute and 13 seconds. Got some burning, which is due to a high tooth count. Other than that, the finish was pretty good, but the motor was really struggling. I think with a lower tooth count blade, possibly thin kerf, it would have performed better. But again, because you have that riving knife, that's an issue that you're going to have to work around or deal with. Now, this entire video has basically been me trying to compare track saws against the brand new offering from Festool, the TS60. And it naturally begs the question, well, how does it stack up against their previous offering, which was new, the TSC, which is the cordless version of the TS55, but has a brushless motor with the anti-kickback technology. So here you go. Passed our test in 45 seconds. Finish quality was about as good as it can get. No burning, no teeth marks, no nothing. Actually pretty impressive for a cordless saw. And for those of you who want more cowbell, here's a shot of both the TSC 55 and the corded TS60 going against one another. They honestly felt very similar. I don't think the motors are exactly the same, but they're very close. But with that direct power, the TS60, just impressive. "15 seconds more. Now you may be wondering, that's with the 40 tooth blade. What about a proper ripping blade? I got you covered. On the left is the 16 tooth ripping blade, specifically made for ripping with this saw. And on the right, the 42 tooth blade that comes standard. Pretty nuts. Just crazy. "20 seconds. The fastest out of all my tests ever. Now the cut quality wasn't as good as the 42 tooth blade, and that's kind of expected. However, it was faster, there was no burning, and I think you kind of expect things like this with a ripping blade. You're generally going to be sanding the edges anyway. This blade is very efficient at what it's designed to do. Now I imagine that there are some green Kool-Aid drinking Festool fanboys who love their TS75, and you want to know, how does the 75 stack up against the 60? We'll never know, because this happened when I tried to test it.
That's not a two hands issue. That's a slide stop issue. That little black thing that comes with the track saw that slides into the track and you screw down so that that thing can't kick back when you're doing a plunge cut. That's what that thing is for. Total butt, baby!
Now it was completely my fault, apparently. This is a thing, and with this aggressive blade and this powerful motor, you don't want to plunge into hardwood. You want to do a full depth off and then come into your piece. But this kickback scared me so much, I didn't have the courage to try to do it again. The good news is that I didn't have to change my pants, but I did make a very generous donation to the swear jar. I'm curious, if you own a TS75, has this ever happened to you? Apparently, it's part of the initiation. Now, I don't love this saw. However, out of all of the cheap track saw options out there, in my opinion, this is the only one that you should consider if budget is your limiting factor. And here's why. The other cheaper options, flaws aside, use their own track design, which means that you are cut off from ever upgrading your saw in the future or adding third-party accessories like guide rail squares and parallel guides. If it were me and I only had a few $100s to spend, I would rather go the win route because I could invest in standard tracks, standard clamps, and third-party accessories, and then down the road upgrade just the saw. If I were to start with the other guys, I'm starting all over when I want to upgrade. Now, the things I don't like about this saw is that there is no case, there is no riving knife. It does feel like Fisher-Price. The thumb safety has had some issues and the plastic knobs have fallen off. It doesn't seem to be well thought out. Example, this hex key holder. But the most annoying thing is the depth scale is hard to read and is basically useless in my opinion. However, the pros are it's $100 and it's made out of metal when a lot of the other cheaper track saws use plastic. It does have an anti-tipping feature. It does have an anti-kickback cam, which I really don't like, but it works with standard tracks, and I think that is its selling point. You can also get the cordless option that feels a lot more refined and actually has a better user experience, but, and this is a big but, I'm not sure how trustworthy the battery platform is, and that's a consideration you need to make if you want to go the cordless route. Now, out of both of these saws, I preferred using the cordless. It was smoother, but I don't want another battery platform in my shop. If I can be honest with you, and I know this is YouTube and not the place to be honest, when Festool announced the TS60, I kind of yawned and I really wasn't interested. And the only reason why I bought it is because I knew people would be asking me about it, but they've won me over with this saw. I really like it, and I like it better than all of the other saws that I have used. Is this saw expensive? Of course, but you're buying a lot of value. What you're getting is a well-designed case that works in a system, industry-first kickback stop mechanism. It works with standard tracks and even other tracks like the FSK rail, if you know about that. It has a splinter guard for your offcuts. It's designed to work with thin curved blades. How they designed the motor so it'll sit on its side so you can change the blade is incredible. The brushless motor is the best track saw motor I've ever used. But the best thing about it is what most people don't talk about is with all of Festool's stuff, if you register it, you have a 3-year comprehensive warranty, which includes wear and tear, and get this, 3 years of free shipping to and from Festool service department. Find me another tool company that does that. Now, it's not all rainbows and sunshine. The thing that does suck about it is it uses its own 168mm blade when the standard blades typically are 165mm. So you are working in their ecosystem and the blades can be expensive. That is a con. However, if you're a pro and this is your job and you need the reliability, this is a great investment. Overkill for a homeowner, but a great investment. So what do you do if you don't want to go cheap, but you don't want to splurge? I still think that the best track saw that has the best value for what you pay for is the corded Makita. A lot of people will recommend the Craig, and I don't understand that. I think the corded Makita is the king of the middle road. I bought mine on Black Friday a few years ago for about $330. I know last Black Friday, a ton of people got the deal for about $325. Currently, they're a little bit more than that. But if you ever see a corded Makita on sale for $300-ish and you're getting a case and a track, that is a great deal, and I would put that saw with a thin curved blade up against any other track saw, including the cordless Milwaukee and all of the Festool track saws. If you ever want to maximize the dust extraction on your track saw, or protect your hose, or protect your guide rails, or hang your guide rails, or even hang your TSO accessories, there's a link down below where you can see all the stuff that me and my wife make. It's support from people like you that enable me to make videos like this without being in the pockets of any of these brands. Thank you.